I'm 57 years old, and I'm in love with a married man. And before you decide what kind of woman that makes me, he was my husband first. I'm the one who left him 20 years ago.
This is Michael Tells, and this is Recorded for Me. Today, a woman who left a good man 20 years ago and then spent 3 days at her daughter's wedding standing next to who he turned into.
Hi, Michael. Okay, that's the 4th time I've started this. I keep deleting them because I sound like I'm confessing to something, which I'm not. I haven't done a thing. That's actually the whole problem. So, I'm 57. I live by myself outside Springfield, Ohio, and I like it. I want to say that right at the top, because I think when a woman my age starts a message like this, everybody leans in and goes, "Oh, she's lonely. This is what lonely sounds like." I'm not lonely. I've got a job I don't hate. I've got a sister who calls me too much. I've got a garden that's mostly weeds and one tomato plant that's doing suspiciously well. I've been fine. I have been fine for a long time. And then, 3 weeks ago, I went to my daughter's wedding, and I came home not fine, and I haven't told one single human being. So I'm telling my phone. I'm sorry about that. I hope you don't write back. I just need to say it out loud one time, in a place where it can't get back to anybody. Okay, so, Dale, that's my ex-husband. We were married 15 years, and we've been divorced 20, which means I have now been divorced from that man longer than I was married to him. And I did that math in the car on the way up there, which tells you what kind of state I was already in. And here's the part people always want, so let me just hand it over. There was no affair. There was no other woman. There was no other man. Nobody drank. Nobody yelled. I honestly cannot remember the two of us ever raising our voices. That's not me being generous. That's just what happened. We took turns carrying boxes out to the driveway, and we were polite about it. And at one point, he asked me if I wanted the good cooler, and I said yes, and he gave me the good cooler. I left. That's the whole story. I was 37 years old, and I woke up one morning with this feeling like my life had already happened. Like the interesting part was over, and now there was just going to be a lot of Tuesdays. And I got it into my head that if I didn't go find out who I was by myself, I never would. And I want to be careful here, because I've noticed that when I tell this to people, I start explaining, and the explaining makes it sound better than it was. So let me just say the flat version. He didn't do anything. I left a good man who was good to me because I wanted to see what else there was. Megan was 12. That's the flat version. I've had 20 years to come up with a better one, and I never did. Now, I should say, it's not like I never laid eyes on him after that. 20 years, we've been in the same room maybe 5 times. Megan's graduation, his mother's funeral, that kind of thing. Always with a crowd, always about an hour, always somebody's parking lot afterward, and then you go home. You can stand 4 feet from a man 5 times in 20 years and not see him at all. I want you to hold on to that, because it matters later. Anyway, Megan called me in March, my daughter. She's 32 now, she's a nurse, and she is 100 times more of a grown-up than I was at her age. And she calls, and she's doing this thing she does, where she's being real casual on purpose. And she goes, "So, Mom, Dad's coming." And I said, "Well, of course he's coming, honey. He's your father." And she says, "Right, okay. I just wanted you to know." And I hung up, and I stood in my kitchen, and I practiced. I'm not kidding. I stood in my kitchen and practiced saying, "Hi, Dale," in a normal voice, like a crazy person, like a woman rehearsing for a hostage situation. Then I bought a dress that was too young for me, and I kept the tags on for 11 days, and I took it back, and I got the other one. So the wedding's up in Michigan, near Traverse City, at one of those barn places. about 7 hours from me. I got in on Thursday, wedding Saturday, and I saw him in the parking lot of the venue Thursday afternoon before I saw anybody else. He was getting something out of his trunk, and he's old. I mean, that sounds terrible. He's 60. He looks like a 60-year-old man. The hair's gone gray and gone thin, and he's got that thing across the shoulders where they round forward a little. And he's got his reading glasses hooked in his shirt pocket, which his father used to do that. His father did that every single day of his life, and I could not stand that man. And I'm standing in a gravel parking lot in Michigan, and I almost laughed out loud. Because there it was, 50 feet away, the pocket. And he saw me, and he did this little wave, sort of chest height, kind of embarrassed. And he came over and said, "Hey, Lor." Nobody's called me Lor in 20 years. So that was Thursday. Now, his wife. Her name is Annette. They've been married about 12 years. I've met her exactly twice, both times for about 90 seconds, and both times she was perfectly nice and I was perfectly nice, and we both got out of there as fast as we could. She wasn't there, and I found out why on Friday. From Megan, who told me while she was walking past me carrying 2 boxes of mason jars, because that is how you find out anything important at a wedding. Annette decided not to come, on purpose. And what she told Megan was, and Megan's doing it in Annette's voice, kind of, over her shoulder, half laughing. She said, "It's your mom's day too. I don't want anybody looking at the pictures later and doing math." And Megan just kept walking, because to Megan, that's a nice thing somebody said. And I said, "Well, that's very thoughtful of her." And then I went and stood in the bathroom for a while. Because, Michael, do you understand what that woman did? She gave me 3 days. She sat at home 7 hours away, and she gave me 3 days with my daughter and my daughter's father, and nobody in the room having to be careful. That is not a small thing. That is not a thing most people would do. I don't think I would have done it. I know I wouldn't have done it at her age. And I thought about that a lot since. Because it turns out the woman who made that whole weekend possible is also the exact reason I'm sitting here talking into a phone instead of doing anything about any of it. So, here's the 3 days. And I want to warn you, nothing happens. That's not me being coy. Nothing happened. Friday we set up the arbor, that flower arch thing they stand under. It came in pieces and it was crooked, and there were about 9 people standing around it having opinions. And Dale and I just picked it up. And he took the heavy side. He didn't say anything. He didn't look at me. He just went to the heavy side. Because I threw my back out in 2001, hanging drywall in a house he doesn't even live in anymore, and 25 years later his body still knows that about my body. And I stood there holding my end and I thought, that's it. That's the moment I'd point to if you made me pick one. Not the dance. That. Then, Friday night, there's the rehearsal dinner, and he's talking to Ryan. That's my son-in-law. That's a whole other message. He's a good kid. And Dale's asking him about his job, and actually listening to the answer, and then asking the next question, which men his age do not do. And I'm across the table watching my ex-husband be genuinely curious about a 29-year-old, and I caught myself waiting for him to look over at me after he made a joke, to check if I got it. I used to do that when I was 24, and I did it Friday night at 57, and I felt it happen, and I could not stop it. Saturday morning, Megan lost it, 20 minutes before, in that little side room, hair done, the whole thing, and she just came apart. Not sad, just too much. And I'm doing what I do, which is talking. I'm saying all these words, and she's getting worse. And Dale came in, and he didn't say anything at all. He put his hand flat on the top of her head, like she was 6, and she stopped. That's when I knew. Standing 4 feet away in a rented room with a folding chair in it, that is the exact second. Because I fell in love with that man when I was 21 years old, And what I fell in love with was who he was going to turn into. That's what you do at 21. You look at somebody and you see the finished version and you sign up for it. And I left before it finished. And Saturday morning, I'm standing in a side room looking at the finished version, and he is better than I thought he'd be. He is calmer and kinder and quieter than the man I married, and I did not get to watch it happen. Somebody else did. Okay, so let me just say the thing now, so you're not sitting there through the rest of this waiting for me to say it. I'm not going to do anything. Not one thing. Not a phone call, not a Christmas card that says a little too much, not a, hey, I was just thinking about you at 11 o'clock at night. Nothing. Ever. That man is married. He is married to a woman who stayed home so I could have a good weekend. I am not going to stand near that with a match. And I'm not looking for anybody to tell me I'm being noble about it, because I'm not. This isn't me being good. This is arithmetic. There is nothing on the other side of that door, so I'm not opening the door. I just want somebody to know it happened. That's all this is. We danced, by the way, father-daughter, and then they do the thing where the parents come out. And I counted. The whole time. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, like a fifth grader. Because if I stopped counting, I was going to have to be somewhere. And he said, "You still lead." And I said, "You still let me." And that was the most dangerous thing either one of us said all weekend. And it wasn't dangerous at all. And I've thought about it maybe 400 times. Sunday morning, the parking lot. Everybody hugging, everybody promising to do this more often, which we won't. And he's putting his bag in the trunk. And I'm getting in my car, and he shut the trunk and said, "Call me when you get in, so I know." He used to say that. For 15 years. Every single time I drove anywhere. Grocery store, my mother's. It didn't mean anything. It was just what came out of him when I got in a car. And he said it in a hotel parking lot in Michigan, on autopilot. And I would bet you every dollar I have that he did not hear himself say it. I watched his face. There was nothing there. He was thinking about traffic. So the whole thing, the entire thing, it happened inside one person. Him, nothing. Me. The floor came out. And I said, "Yep." And I got in my car. I did call him, 7 hours later, from my own driveway. And I have to tell you, it was worse than not calling. It was so nice. He asked about the construction on 23. I said it was fine. He said, "Annette says congratulations again." I said, "Tell her thank you, really." And he said, "All right, glad you're home, Lor." And that was it. 40 seconds. And I sat in my own driveway with the engine off for I don't know how long. Then Tuesday, Annette texted me. She got my number from Megan. 2 sentences. She said the pictures turned out beautiful, and Megan looked so happy, and she was glad it was such a good weekend for everybody. That's it. That's the whole text. There is nothing in it. I have read it probably 200 times looking for something in it, and there is nothing in it. Because she is just a nice woman who sent a nice text. So that's where I am. I'm 57 years old, and I'm in love with a man I was married to for 15 years and left on purpose. And he's got a wife. And the wife is a better person than I am. And I'm not going to do anything about any of it. And I don't know how to be in the room with that. I'm not asking you what to do. I know what I'm doing. Nothing. Forever. I've got that part handled. The part I can't get my arms around is that I didn't know it was in there. 20 years. I thought I had put it down. I built an entire life on the understanding that I had put it down. And it turns out it was just sitting there the whole time. And all it took was 3 days in Michigan and a man taking the heavy end of a flower arch. Here's the only other thing. And then I'll let you go. For 20 years, I have been quietly ashamed of leaving. I never said that out loud. Not to my sister, not to Megan, not to anybody. But it's been there. Every holiday. Every time somebody asks what happened, and I have to say, nothing happened. and I'm not anymore. Because I saw him. I saw who he turned into. And he did not turn into that next to me. He turned into that after. Whatever he needed to become that man, I wasn't it. And I don't think I could have been. And I think if I'd stayed, we'd both be somebody smaller right now. So it cost me everything, and it wasn't a mistake. Both of those are true, and I would love it if somebody could tell me how to hold both of them at the same time. But I don't actually think there's a trick to it. I think you just carry it. Okay, that's it. That's the whole thing. Thanks for listening, Michael. Please don't write back. Actually, no. Write back if you want. Just don't tell me what to do. Bye.
I listened to that one twice before I knew what to do with it. And I'll be straight with you. I don't have anything for Lorraine. She asked me not to tell her what to do, and the truth is, I couldn't have anyway. The part I keep coming back to isn't the parking lot. It isn't the dance. It's Annette, a woman none of us will ever meet. She sat at home, 7 hours away, so that somebody else could have a good weekend. Nobody thanked her. Nobody made a speech. She's not in one single picture. And she is the reason that whole story stays exactly where it is. Lorraine said she thought she'd put it down. 20 years. Built an entire life right on top of it. And it was sitting there the whole time. I don't think that's rare. I think that's most of us. So that's what I'll leave you with tonight. Not what she should do. She already knows. And she's already doing it. Just this. What did you put down? And are you sure it's still down? Thank you for listening. I'm Michael.